Hi everyone, and welcome back to the channel. I'm back here on my home patch, the Horn Pond Recreation Area in eastern Massachusetts, and it's time for another update to my Little Big Year, which is my quest to see and photograph as many species as possible here on my home patch by the end of 2024. So in my last episode, which I aired about a month ago, I had, somewhat surprisingly, managed to reach my total for the year, my goal for the year of 125 species already. So anything else after that is going to be just gravy, but the goal is really to see as many species as possible, so the quest continues. In the last month, I've actually managed to add several more birds to the list, which I'm going to show in this video. Even better, 3 or 4 of those birds are actually really unusual birds that I was not expecting to get. So with that said, let's jump right into it with the first bird, which is the most unusual of the birds that I've seen, which is a Great Cormorant. So in this group of 3 cormorants right here, the Great Cormorant is the one on the right, which is slightly larger. And you can also see the diagnostic white patch under the chin, especially when the bird turns its head to the side, which it'll do a few times before the end of this video. So here in Massachusetts, the most common cormorant species is the double-crested cormorant, and that's actually true of most of the United States. But in the wintertime, we do also have here in New England the slightly larger Great Cormorant. This species isn't really rare, but it's very much a coastal bird that roosts on rocks in the ocean. So if you visit a coastal area in the winter, and especially if you go out in a boat a little ways out into the water, you're very likely to see Great Cormorants. But anywhere else, any other time of year, and you're probably going to be out of luck. But here we are in September, and we're 10 miles inland on my home patch, and we have a Great Cormorant, so that's really surprising. This is actually the second Great Cormorant that I've had after 15 years of birding my home patch, to give you an idea of how unusual they are. So that is bird number 126 for the Little Big Year list, and that is also a new bird for the channel life list. Next up is a bird that we do already have on the list, and that is a great egret. I'm featuring this bird now early in the video because I really was quite happy with the footage I managed to get of this bird. As with all white birds, getting the lighting and exposure right so that the bird isn't overexposed is critical. This particular great egret has been hanging around for a few weeks now, and it's not at all shy, often feeding just a few feet off of a busy path with people watching it. So for the next few birds, I'm going to move over to the community garden area, which, as I've mentioned a few times in previous videos, is a really good place to find all sorts of birds, including some unusual birds in the fall. So the next one that I'm going to show you, and it comes in just a close second to the Great Cormorant in terms of being most unusual, this is in second place, is this Dickcissel. Dickcissels are actually a declining species in Massachusetts. They're getting harder and harder to find. They're a bird of farm fields and open fields, and there just isn't as much farming as there used to be in New England and in Massachusetts. But this spot here, the community garden, is actually as good a spot as any in the state to find them in the fall. But there's certainly no guarantee, and they don't show up every year. So as I was viewing this Dickcissel with some other birders, we started to realize that there were actually 2 birds, 2 Dickcissels. One of them had a lot more yellow on the breast than the other one. This clip here is of the drabber individual, which we think is probably a first-year bird, and you can see how much less yellow it has on the breast than the other one that I showed in the first clip. So here I am back in the community garden. You can see that behind me here. Lots of good birds have been flying around this area, that's for sure. Another good bird that I had recently, in fact shortly after the Dickcissel, is a bobolink. Bobolinks are not really unusual here. We do get them most falls, but they can be quite hard to find. And unfortunately for this bird, I really only have this one photo. This bobolink showed up and I saw it for a total of perhaps 10 seconds, and then the bird moved away after I'd taken just a few shots. And we thought, you know, we would just re-find it, but we looked for it for a long time. Other birders looked for it, and it really was never seen again, and no other bobolinks have showed up. So I was lucky to get this one shot. When I went through my photos, this was actually the only shot where the bird was not turning its head to the side. So this sort of drab-looking bobolink is what we always see here, unfortunately, in the fall in my home patch. They molt rather quickly out of their breeding plumage, and so we get these sort of drab ones that almost look like house sparrows. I'll put up a few photos of ones that we've had in previous years here in the community garden. So it's kind of unfortunate because the male bobolinks are actually kind of gaudy and showy with these funny yellow feathers on their head. I'm going to put up a quick video clip that I took early in the year from Plum Island where they were breeding, and just so you can see what the male bobolink looks like. Just a couple of other birds that I've seen during the last month in the community garden. This is a male rose-breasted grosbeak, looking just a little dull as it starts to come out of its breeding plumage. And this is a female indigo bunting, which does not have any blue on it at all, obviously. It's quite a drab-looking bird, and it's often overlooked as being a house sparrow or something like that. Okay, the next new bird is also from the community garden, and that is a Nashville warbler. This was a really nice one to get because I had heard a few of them singing in the spring migration, but I just wasn't able to get much of a look and no photographs at all. So it was good to catch up with it now in the fall. So this was the first look that I got of the bird. It was just the head sticking out from behind some leaves, but there's actually enough here to ID the bird. You can see the gray head with the bold eye ring, and then of course the sharp pointed warbler bill. I did manage to chase this bird around a little bit and get a better photo with a little bit more of the bird showing. You can see the olive color on the back in this image, and you can see a hint of the yellow that it has on the breast there on the side. So Nashville warbler actually is warbler species number 20 for the year on the Little Big Year list. So the warblers have really been key to getting a good total going for the year. We're certainly very lucky here in eastern United States to have so many of these beautiful little warbler species to look at. It's really, I think, one of the highlights of birding in this area for sure. So the next bird certainly falls into the category of a very unexpected bird. I was scanning along the edge of a reed bed, along a mud flat, and if you're a birder, you know what I'm talking about. Sometimes you just scan along the edge of the reeds and you're hoping to see some sort of unusual rail or heron or something flitting around in there, and most of the time you don't see anything. But this was one of those times when suddenly I saw a movement. There was a little bird in there, and I followed it around for a while, and it finally poked its head out, and I was sort of thinking that it was going to be a Virginia rail because we have had those around my home patch, particularly in the spring. But when it came out, I immediately noticed that it had a very short bill instead of a long bill, and it was actually a Sora, which is another kind of rail, but one that here in Massachusetts at least is a lot harder to find than Virginia rails. And I have had them a few times in the past on my home patch, but it's always very unexpected and exciting to get a sighting of a Sora. So it was rather late in the day and there wasn't a lot of light, but I did get some reasonable video of the bird feeding completely out of the reeds. So that was really cool. Another pretty lucky sighting for me because that was over a week ago now and the bird hasn't been seen again. Okay, so next up is a nice sighting of a bird that I know that people who watch my videos really like to see, and that is this barred owl. This is actually one of the best looks that I've gotten at a barred owl in the past couple of years. You can see the bird is nearly at eye level and isn't obstructed by branches, as is often the case. Also, the bird is clearly awake and it's not just sleeping or roosting in this spot. This is actually right next to a busy path, and so it really isn't the kind of spot that it would want to roost in for the night. I actually brought my wife by for a look about half an hour after I took this video, and by that time the bird had already moved on. One more new bird for the Little Big Year list is this red-eyed vireo. So this is the opposite of an unusual or unexpected bird. These are very common here. I've been hearing them singing all summer long, but it's one of those birds that spends a lot of time high up in the trees singing, and you really can't get a look at it. I wasn't able to get any sort of photograph at all, but they do tend to come down a little bit in the fall. And so I would say that getting this one on video and getting a photo here was really more a feeling of relief than anything else, because it would be really annoying to miss such a common bird from the Little Big Year list. It's been a really good year for green herons on my home patch. It's always fun to see these cute little guys and watch them hunting. When they're relaxed, they look like they have short necks, but then when they spot some food, it stretches way out, as this one here is demonstrating. Eastern bluebirds have been around all year, and I am still waiting for my chance to get some good close-up footage. I'm hoping they start hanging out here in the community garden, which will at least put them closer to eye level. Okay, so now we have pushed the Little Big Year list up over 130 species, and I think there's still going to be some more birds to come. I was reviewing the list actually, and I can see that there's actually some common birds that really do need to find their way onto the list. For example, herring gull and hooded merganser and a few others. And of course, fall is a great time for more unusual stuff to show up. So I'll definitely be back with some more episodes before the end of the year. So if you've made it this far in the video, first of all, thank you very much for watching. And also, I do have a request, which would be that you subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Subscribing to the channel is something that tells YouTube that the videos are interesting to watch, and it will then promote my videos by showing them to other people who might be interested in watching them. So it's a good thing to do if you're enjoying the content. And if you watched the video this far, you must have liked the content a little bit at least. So that's a wrap for this episode, and I'll see you in the next one.